The day of flotilla, I doubt you will find more than a handful of stories about the blockade, about the siege, about the impact on Palestinian lives in Gaza, even as dozens of human rights and humanitarian organizations around the world were reporting, including the UN, about deteriorating humanitarian conditions in Gaza. You will find virtually no media coverage of this. You will find virtually no statements by foreign governments about the situation. And yet, almost the day, even before 24 hours had passed after the flotilla was attacked, we had the governments of France, Sweden, and Ireland, and of course Turkey. Those four right away coming out and challenging the logic of the policy of the siege and the blockade. After another 24 hours, there was a chorus that you would have to look hard to find a country that wasn't challenging the logic of the blockade. And by the third day, we had an Israeli government go from defending its policy on the premise that there were thousands upon thousands of rockets that had already made their way into Gaza from places like Iran and elsewhere, to an Israeli government that changed its position and said, indeed, the siege didn't make sense anymore. We had an American government that initially even came out and said that the siege, the blockade should end, and then quickly revised its statement once Israel figured out what it was going to say, and also took the Israeli line that a different kind of siege needed to be put in place, a siege light. The policy shouldn't be the policy shouldn't be what is allowed into Gaza, but what's not allowed into Gaza. And that is basically where we are today. The siege has changed, but it is still a siege. The blockade still exists, albeit wrapped up in different packaging. So now, chocolate, which previously couldn't get in, and how can you defend not letting chocolate into a place, now can get in. So Israel's not in a position of having to defend that there might be something called terrorist chocolate or terrorist pasta, as John Kerry noted on his visit. Instead, what we face today is a situation where really the most needed items, Palestinians don't need chocolate, they don't need chips. It's great to have, don't get me wrong, I'm sure plenty of people are happy to have it, but that's not what's needed. We're in a situation now where the siege is targeting the things that are actually needed in Gaza. The reconstruction material of rebuilt homes, the medical supplies to treat different kinds of illnesses in Gaza, the medical technology that would allow for the machines that already exist in Gaza but can't be repaired, can't be upgraded, can't get the spare part to perform life-saving surgery, life-saving treatment on patients. All of that is denied, continues to be denied. Palestinians still basically can't leave. Yes, Egypt has opened the Rafah border, and something like 60,000 Palestinians have managed to cross the border for various periods of time, and most of those people are leaving for medical reasons. But for the most part, a Palestinian who has the opportunity to go study somewhere, to pursue an education, to pursue earning a living, can still not leave Gaza. The fishermen, of course, still can't go out beyond 2 miles, really, if even that. The farmers still can't get to their land along what's called the buffer zone, which now extends over 1 kilometer into Gaza territory. So, although the siege has changed a little bit, it still, in its effect, is just as devastating as before. So what are we doing? We managed to do this big flotilla. We managed to endure and survive this tragic and devastating event that happened to us. And in the wake of it, we started receiving all kinds of outpouring of support, from people donating money for the next flotilla. And just in the 2 weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks after the attack on the flotilla, we received in small donations from hundreds of people around the United States, because I'm only talking about what was donated in the US, something like $50,000 for the Free Gaza movement. About 2 weeks after the flotilla was attacked, I spoke in New York with Colonel Ann Wright, who retired Colonel Enright, who you may have heard of because of her work in protesting against the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. She was on the ships. She and I spoke at an event in New York at a pretty hastily organized event because she had just returned to the United States. We ended up with about 350 people packed into a small church in New York City. And she asked the crowd, because she had been hearing, and I had been hearing, and others of us have been hearing the whole time, where are the Americans on this flotilla? Among the number of citizens, we had about 13 American citizens on the ships, out of a total of almost 1,000 people. A very small participation. But more importantly, people were asking, where's an American ship? And so Anne asked the crowd, should we try to get an American ship? Are people ready to commit to getting a U.S. ship? And the response was of course, overwhelming. And so now we have a campaign, US Vote to Gaza. The website is ustogaza.org. And so far they've raised about almost $200,000 to get the U.S. flag American ship that's going with an American delegation that's going to join the next flotilla. But we also have a campaign and groups working in Canada, in the UK, France, Spain, Belgium, the Netherlands, South Africa, India. We're working on getting a regional vote delegation from Latin America to have a Latin American representation. And there are, I'm sure, other countries that will come forward. This will be a bigger flotilla than the last one. As far as Free Gaza goes, we're working now to coordinate all of these different efforts and to help them, to help groups get to the point where they can get a ship, and then to coordinate everybody's work in order to make this the most effective kind of flotilla yet. We learned from this previous experience in the past, we would get ships, and they would be called Free Gaza ships, and there would be this conglomerate of participation from around the world, and in a sense it was beautiful that all of these people from different countries would come together and sail together on one ship and go together. But what we learned was that from the Turkish experience and from the Swedish-Greek experience, that having a national ship, having a ship that was the Swedish participation in the flotilla, rallied people in that country. It got the media behind it. It got people in the parliament interested because it was a Swedish ship. And so we're shifting our strategy a bit. So we're not going to have Free Gaza ships, but we're going to work with others to get the Canadian ship, the American ship, the Dutch ship, whatever you want to call it. This, I think, will help us escalate our efforts for the next time around and draw even more support and solidarity and attention, no matter what happens to this flotilla the next time. Next time, if we do arrive in Gaza, I doubt the media response, the attention will be as silent as it was during the first 5 missions when we arrived. And if we can arrive this time with our cargo, then I think the pressure on aid agencies, including groups like the USAID or the other big international organizations, the pressure will be so huge on them to also deliver aid in this way, that there is then no reason anymore to have to abide by these restrictions. And again, everything we do is open and public. I should have made this clear earlier. When we leave a port, we're leaving from European ports. All of our ships, all of our cargo, all of our passengers, everyone is inspected by European officials according to European Union standards. And so every inch of every ship is inspected for illegal cargo. They're looking for drugs, they're looking for weapons, they're looking for anything that couldn't be shipped into another port in Europe or that couldn't be exported from a port in Europe. And so when we get a clean bill of health from Europe, that's a pretty good inspection. The same the same ships that are delivering goods to Israel from European ports undergo the same exact inspections that our ships undergo. And so the notion that somehow we're bringing in materials that are a threat to Israel is absurd. Further, the notion that we could receive material at sea is equally absurd, because I can tell you the whole time that we're sailing, and every single mission that we've done, the Israeli military is tracking us on radar from their own ships. They're following our